last week because I wanted sleep and Hoot wanted sleep, and I don't blame anyone else who wanted to sleep in. Just all that extra snow falling down. I think it was the joys of, oh, the bed is warm, the pillow is cool. I am gonna snuggle more than get up, and I hope you guys got some good sleep last week. Uh, let's see. Let's make up for last week. Let's do Proverbs 10. I'm on page 737. And Hoot, I'll read this one. And if you want to read 17.
Yep, that works for me, man.
Cool. All right. Proverbs 10. Proverbs of Shalom. A wise son makes a father rejoice, but a foolish son is his mother's sorrow. Treasures of wrongness are of no value, but righteousness delivers from death. Yahweh does not let the being of the righteous go hungry, but he thrusts away the desire of the wrong. Poor is he who works with a lazy hand, but the hand of the hard worker makes rich. He who gathers in summer is a wise son. He who sleeps in harvest is a son who causes shame. Blessings are on the head of the righteous, but violence covers the mouth of the wrong. The remembrance of the righteous is blessed, but the name of the wrong one rot. The wise in heart accepts commands, but one with foolish lips falls. He who walks in integrity walks safely, but he who perverts his way becomes known. He who winks with the eye causes sorrow, and one with foolish lips falls. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but violence covers the mouth of the wrong. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all transgressions. Wisdom is found on the lips of him who has understanding, but a rod is for the back of him who lacks heart. The wise hide knowledge, but the mouth of the fool is near ruin. The rich man's wealth is his strong city. The ruin of the poor is their poverty. The wage of the righteous is for life. The increase of the wrong is for sin. He who heeds discipline is in the way of life, but he who refuses reproof goes astray. He who hides hatred has lying lips. He who sends out a slander is a fool. When words are many, transgression is not absent, but he who restrains his lips is wise. The tongue of the righteous is choice silver. The heart of the wrong is of little value. The lips of the righteous shepherd many, but fools die for lack of heart. The blessing of Yahweh makes one rich, and he adds no pain with it. To work out wicked schemes is like sport to a fool, but wisdom is for a man of understanding. What the wrong one fears comes upon him, but the desire of the righteous is granted. As the whirlwind passes by, the wrong one is no more, but the righteous has an everlasting foundation. As vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so is the lazy one who sends him, or so is the lazy one to those who send him. The fear of Yahweh prolongs days, but the years of the wrong one are shortened. The righteous look forward to joy, but the expectancy of the wrong one perishes. The way of Yahweh is a stronghold for the perfect, but ruin to the workers of wickedness. The righteous is never shaken, while the wrong shall not dwell in the earth. The mouth of the righteous brings forth wisdom, but the tongue of perverseness is cut out. The lips of the righteous know what is pleasing, but the mouth of the wrong speaks perverseness. Shalom, Matt Bear. Brian Barnes.
Shalom, homie. Both stellar brothers.
Exactly.
Man, in the grand scale of things, What a proverb. Just, and the whole thing is just straight up walking the ways of God. It seems to
Yeah,
go
I know.
for you.
I was noticing that like the whole way through. This one has a really good cohesive theme of fear Yahweh and walking His ways, basically.
Yeah, just this constant back and
Mm.
forth of like you want to do these things and definitely not any of these things, and
Yeah,
you
because
know,
there's several other proverbs where it's like almost more bullet points,
yeah,
and those bullet points are a little more scattered in some of them, and this one is relatively cohesive all the way through.
yeah.
Uh, so I don't know if that's an organization thing when Ezra came through and organized these, or if that's something that like this one was a long um, and that were just kind of all clustered together for him. I don't know.
Well, I'd be interested too. I haven't really looked into it, but
Yeah,
um,
same.
we would. It would be cool to see like how it was actually written out, because
Mm.
I wouldn't think it was written out in the chapters that they are. They were probably just
Yeah,
excerpts, or like
from
maybe it was
from
a
what I
journal or whatever.
yeah from what I know, which isn't much, but from what I know, Solomon wasn't the only author of Proverbs. I know that much. I know that they were collections of sayings that were gathered, organized, and edited together. And the consensus is that Ezra, who he was a scribe in the Second Temple timeline, uh, that he went through and he edited the vast majority of the Old Testament. That he is the one who's credited as the editor, so
Okay.
to speak, that a lot of scholars will refer to. Now, whether he was the actual editor or not, I don't know. But he often is credited with that, with organizing the layout and the order of the Psalms and the Proverbs, specifically, um, where his hand is heaviest. Um, but there's also talk that some of the prophets had multiple scrolls for different prophecies that he basically laid out and stitched together, so that way it would be like a cohesive book. Um, you know, um, there's a thought that there's two sections to Isaiah. Um, the there's even some scholars who think that there might have been two Isaiahs, because the first half of Isaiah is completely different in theme from the back half of Isaiah. Um, and I think I like D.L. Moody's quote. He was an evangelist up in the Chicago area back in the day. They actually named a school after him. But I liked D.L. Moody's quote when he was commenting on the whole two Isaiahs thing. He's like, most of my parishioners don't know that there's one Isaiah, let alone the possibility of two. So I think it's a small matter. Um, and I personally think that um, there was just one Isaiah, and that the reason his book is so um, differing in themes from the front half and the back half is because they were written at two different times in his
Mm.
life. I think he was younger when he wrote the first half, and as he aged out and as he saw more and more progress, as more and more was revealed to him, different prophecies. That it's just my journals from 10 years ago are going to look different from my journals now, and so that's
Yeah,
uh,
that would make a lot of sense to me.
yeah, that's my thought process. So I would say that uh, when we're looking at Proverbs, when we're looking at Psalms, you're going to see some different cohesiveness even from the same author, because David writing a psalm when he's 30 versus David writing a psalm when he's like in his 60s, I think are going to look a little different. Um,
Mhm.
you know, Solomon writing a proverb when he's still a relatively young man versus him writing a proverb when he's, old and gray after he's, gone wayward and come back. I think there's going to be different nuggets of wisdom in that. So,
Yeah, I was actually talking to my brother last night about the Proverbs. We kind of just reading through different Proverbs, talking about, completely off subject thing about somebody we know. And
mhm,
I was pointing out how interesting it is to me because I don't know when he would have wrote this, whether
mhm,
early on in his life or after or later on, which would to me be a big difference because
mhm.
later on he dealt with a lot of things. He,
Yeah.
he fell into a lot of traps. And I find it very interesting that he seems to write quite a bit and know quite a bit about the strange woman, right?
Mhm.
Which could be very much the physical thing as much as
Mhm.
it is very much like false worship, which
Yeah, it
I fell
it
into
would have been
pro.
fascinating if he wrote these younger, and then
Right,
fell into all of that, and then it's like,
right.
dude, you didn't even like understand your own advice. But it sure would be a whole heap of wisdom if he's writing this later in life. Is like, bro, I've been there. Like, look, this does
Yeah,
not end
yeah.
well.
It's like, hey man, all of this sucks. Don't do it.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, so
Shalom, JS Jennison's designs.
I agree. More coffee would be great. Also, the
100%.
wisdom of Psalm speaks for itself when you show us quoting them.
Mhm.
Psalm 110, for example.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. Very much prophetic. A lot of them are to what happened.
Yeah, who has more wisdom than an old man with mistakes under his belt? 100%.
Yeah.
I still like that would definitely be something for more research is, if he's laying out all of these warnings of the strange woman when he's younger before he falls off. I
Yeah.
know I know it's thought that Ecclesiastes, was written much later in Solomon's life, like towards the end.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and I don't know where on the timeline, uh, you know, most of the proverbs fall, but a lot of scholars think that Ecclesiastes comes much later. So, uh, but yeah, I don't know. Um, Cutting in on this one, uh, like just the cohesive theme all the way around. Um, Yahweh does not let the being of the righteous go hungry. Um, Remembrance of the righteous is blessed. Uh, Wise heart accepts commands. He who walks in integrity walks safely. Uh, Mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life. Uh, Wisdom is found on the lips of him who has understanding. The wise hide knowledge. Um, the wage of the righteous is for life. Um, he who heeds discipline is in the way of life. That one's telling. Um, Lips of the righteous shepherd many. Uh, Blessings of Yahweh make one rich. He adds no pain with it. Wisdom is for a man of understanding. The desire of the righteous is granted. Um, Righteous has an everlasting foundation. That's telling. Fear of Yahweh prolongs days. Righteous look forward to joy. way of Yahweh is a stronghold for the perfect. Um, the righteous is never shaken. The mouth of the righteous brings forth wisdom. The lips of the righteous know what is pleasing. So I mean, yeah, you have a relatively cohesive all the way through that. Righteousness, walking in His way, uh, wisdom, understanding.
So
And I think that's really cool.
I noticed there's so to speak, almost like a smaller theme too, because he seems to talk a lot in this one about the use of words and what comes from your lips, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like in verse 19, when words are many, transgression is not absent, but he who restrains his lips is wise.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember exactly where it is off the top of my head right now, but we were reading a psalm last night, me and my brother, and it was something to the effect of even a fool is considered wise when he shuts his lips, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just this idea that this reiterating theme, it seems, throughout the Proverbs. Life and death are in the power of the tongue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here in verse 21, the lips of the righteous shepherd many, but fools die for a lack of heart. I have a little note here for John 21, verse 15 through 18. It's when Yeshua is coming to Peter and telling him to shepherd his flock, and he basically reiterates that 3 times. And it's just, I don't know, that's just where my mind went, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The point when I read that verse where it's because that one's kind of interesting, right? Because Peter had anger issues
Mm-hmm.
many times where his lips probably would have had him gone astray. And yet he was still righteous enough that Messiah was giving him the expectation that after he was gone, he would lead the congregation
Mm-hmm.
or the assembly as they were, moving in a certain direction
Mm-hmm.
after his death. Which I think Peter is relatable to a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
So if Peter could be used because he submits himself at the very least, then in our seek of righteousness, the lips of the righteous shall shepherd many. Now, I don't think we're all called to be shepherds per se.
No.
It's a very particular job, but I mean, at the
Yeah.
very least, we could shepherd our homes. We can shepherd,
100%.
people we know. It's
So
a
I
little bit
was
different than leading a congregation.
100%. So I was chewing on this the other day, and one of the things that I have a lot of respect for with Bob is his heart for evangelism.
Mm.
Um, and I think it's really cool that he does everything he can to share Messiah with the scammers that call him. Just like that's something that
It,
uh,
it's super cool to see it
yeah,
firsthand too.
I've heard him do it in proximity, but I've never seen him do it face to face. And
It's
I think that's really cool.
it's cool.
Uh, the I'm all for evangelism. I have, you know, no disdain for it whatsoever. It's something that is probably a muscle that I need to work on a little bit more. I don't know, I guess more in the long haul game for when it comes to evangelism than I guess the leaving stones in somebody's shoe. So that way, when they, they walk about their day like they're chewing on something that I've said or it bothers them or whatever. That's something that I don't do very often or well for that matter. And so maybe it's just a muscle I need to exercise more. Something that I think um, that I try to focus on a little bit more than evangelism, and it doesn't mean that these two things are exclusive of each other. Is I am more of building up of the saints than I am of reaching out to to pull more people on the lifeboat, I guess. Um, and I think it is important to get everybody you can on the lifeboat. Uh, it's just for whatever reason, my focus has been more on, uh, hey, let's make everybody who's already on the lifeboat strong enough to pull more people on board. Uh, so that way, like we can all paddle together. Um, and like I said, those two things aren't exclusive of each other. And for whatever reason, um, there's other muscles that I need to flex. There's other muscles that I need to actually work on. Um, but I think that also plays into, um, everybody in the body is going to have different functions,
Hmm.
and uh, it's not that we can't do multiple things. It's just there's going to be other things that we're better at than others, and um, it comes down to a certain amount of uh, focus on what you're good at, but also be able to um, do other things relatively well, even if it's not your main squeeze or whatever.
Well, good morning, Dana.
Yeah, shalom, Dana, and then JS Genesis. Uh, we're all called to be disciples and 100% strengthen each other and never walk alone. Um, yeah, I would say First Timothy is a good guide for that. And I want to plug in Matt Bear said something a little bit earlier. Verse 14, the wise treasure up knowledge, but Psalm 119, verse 11, your word have I treasured in my heart. That's a good cross reference there. Um, Matt 6, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. That's a good one too.
I just did. I'm more and more fascinated as the days go by at how congruent the word is. There's
100%.
nothing new. We all know
Mm,
that. It's just
yeah.
so much to be found. It's
Mm,
just tied in everywhere. It was to a point that J.S. Genesis made earlier. How did he put it? Um, the Bible is the first hypertext. Can't make it up.
mm, yeah. And then 100% off topic from where we are. Thanks, Matt Bear, for flexing your hammer earlier. Uh, and I was perusing through, and apparently we're big enough now that we have a repeat troll. So I'll take it. So thanks, Matt Bear. I appreciate you using your hammer well. Um, you ready to jump over to 17?
Yeah, man.
Page 744 for those of you guys playing along in the home game.
Yeah, it's way too early for foolishness. I would agree.
Yeah, the problem is that I bring my own foolishness. So
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Voice is feeling quite hoarse this morning, so see how this goes. Okay. Proverbs 17. Better is a dry piece of bread and rest with it than a house filled with slaughters of strife. A wise servant rules over a son who causes shame, and shares an inheritance among the brothers. A refining pot is for silver and a furnace for gold, but Yahweh tries the hearts. An evildoer gives heed to wicked lips. A liar gives ear to a tongue of desire. He who mocks the poor reproaches his maker. He who rejoices at calamity does not go unpunished. Children's children are the crown of old men, and the adornment of children is their fathers. Excellent speech is not fitting for a fool, much less lying lips for a noble. Bribe is a stone of favor in the eyes of its owner. Wherever he turns, he prospers. He who covers a transgression seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates intimate friends. Reproof enters deeper into a wise man than 100 strikes on a fool. An evil one seeks only rebellion, so a cruel messenger is sent against him. Let a bereaved bear meet a man, rather than a fool in his folly. Whoever rewards evil for good, evil does not leave his house. The beginning of strife is like releasing water. Therefore, stop fighting before it breaks out. He who declares the wrong right, and he who condemns the righteous, both of them are an abomination to Yahweh. Why is this? A price in the hand of a fool to buy wisdom, when there is no heart. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. A man lacking heart shakes hands in a pledge. He becomes a guarantor for his friend. He who loves transgression loves strife. He who exalts his door seeks destruction. He who has a crooked heart finds no good, and he who has a perverse tongue falls into evil. He who brings forth a fool has sorrow for it, and the father of a fool has no joy. A rejoicing heart causes good healing, but a stricken spirit dries the bones. One who is wrong accepts a bribe behind the back to pervert the paths of right ruling. Wisdom is before the face of the understanding one, but the eyes of a fool are on the ends of the earth. A foolish son is a grief to his father, and bitterness to her who bore him. It is also not good to punish the righteous one, to strike noble ones for straightness. He who has knowledge spares his words, and a man of understanding is cool of spirit. Even a fool keeping silence is regarded as wise. Oh, there it is. As understanding when he closes his lips.
It's good. I just want to make the social commentary right here. Verse 12. Let a bereaved bear meet a man rather than a fool in his folly.
Yeah, that's
So
rough.
I guess Solomon is saying that in some circumstances, choose the bear instead of the man.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when who was it? Elisha or one of those guys, right?
Number two.
Number two. He's getting mocked by the kids, and he literally there's a bear sent, and
it's two she bears if I remember right, who pop up and
it's like they're being foolish, and literally a bear met them at their path. There's probably something to that.
Yeah, and the likelihood that those guys who were come on you bald man, the likelihood that those guys were like young is pretty low. There's a lot of consensus that they were uh, like in the 16 to 19 range, give or take, and just being like really stuck up, stubborn teenagers who were,
Been there,
like capable of causing a lot of violence. So
right?
it's not like there's some scholars who think that the kids were like 5, and it's like no,
That'd
like
be crazy.
that's not a threat. It's uh, the people like think these roving gangs of mid to upper teenagers who are actually capable of causing, you know, an illicit response.
Yeah.
A verse about being a fool being silent is one of my favorites. Yeah, Brian Barnes, that's a good one. And then Cole Lebowski, Shalom and good morning. Yeah, verse 1. Better is a dry piece of bread and rest with it than a house full with slaughters of strife. So big old feast of, choice cuts of meat. And everyone's arguing over the table like the worst Thanksgiving ever, where no one's politics line up and everyone's disappointed with each other's life decisions. Um, it's better to have a restful house with some really stale bread.
At least you're happy.
Yeah, at least you're happy.
You got some rest.
100%. A wise servant rules over a son who causes shame and shares an inheritance among the brothers. That's a concept that definitely existed back in the ancient world. Um, the thing that comes to mind is in Abraham's house, Eliezer. His number one was uh, potentially slotted to receive the inheritance because Abraham didn't have a son for the longest time, and even when Ishmael was born, Eliezer was still like right up there. Um, and I find it fascinating that that even with Ishmael being there, that Eliezer was basically still slotted to receive inheritance. And it's not until Isaac's born that uh, having a righteous son, that Isaac is actually going to receive the double portion of inheritance, and not that Ishmael didn't get anything, and not that uh, Abraham's other children that he had after Sarah died and he remarried, uh, there's still there's still portions of allotment that were given to all of those. And Eliezer, if I remember and understand correctly, Eliezer was permanently bonded to the house of Abraham, um, and he and his descendants were still richly blessed throughout all of that, which I find fascinating. And that's what comes to mind with verse 2 right there, is that a wise servant rules over the son who causes shame, and that Eliezer probably watched Ishmael grow up, um, and uh, he still had a lot of soft power in Abraham's house, um, like even into Ishmael's youth before he was kicked out of the house. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah. Inheritance is an interesting concept.
Thanks, Brian Barnes. I appreciate that one. Verse 10, there's a lot of verses in Proverbs about the wise accepting reproof. I think that's like half of wisdom right there, is um, letting somebody else point out your mistake and then you actually learning from that mistake.
Yeah.
Reproof enters deeper into a wise man than 100 strikes on a fool. Yeah, I just think that um, 100 strikes on the fool, the beatings will continue until the morale improves. Um, yeah, there's just some people who just don't listen, um, and it doesn't matter how many times they're presented with the same lesson, that you literally can't beat it into them. And I'm not advocating for people to um, have the morale improvement beaten into them. I'm not advocating for having people have wisdom literally beaten into them. But what I am advocating for is, um, as we're going about the way, just recognizing that there's some people who just won't listen. Um, and I don't know if this plays into, um, my thoughts on, um, evangelism and building up the saints. Um, that there's people who are out there that desperately need help and desperately need inside the lifeboat, and if they don't want in, is that, what's the most effective use of time? Is that where my brain's going, when I'm, just casting out pearls, and it ends up that in front of swine, and they don't want it, and they move on, and that is on them at that point. Um, but um, I've got a buddy who I prayed for 9 years before he finally came home. Uh, so like there's the both, and um, there's the never ending patience that Yahweh has for his kids. Um, and that doesn't mean that there's not going to be a rough journey on the way. Um, but uh, if I had had my way, praying for this brother, you know, would have been 6 months or a year, and then he, would have come around and come back home. Uh, but 9 years, and I gave up praying for him twice. So Yah's timing is much better than mine. Uh, and, and I don't know if it's just the demoralization of praying for somebody for a little while and it just not going anywhere, and just wrestle with them back and forth, and it just doesn't go anywhere. But at the same time, um, if you have someone um, who you're sharing the gospel with, and they just have an instant change of heart, um, like a genuine one, um, I think that almost takes you back and go like, okay, is this actually going to stick? Because they came to it so quickly. I don't know. It's none of my business. But the people that I know, that it took a long time um, for faith to take hold in their life, it seems to be deeply rooted in them now. Whereas people who, I know, who have come to faith very quickly, um, have had more of a rocky journey, I guess. Of it came quickly, and um, is it going to take root? Um, I don't know. Not my business. But
Well, I would agree. I'm kind of within that same boat right now
mhm.
because someone I really, really love and have been close to for, well, my entire life
Mm,
is steering back that direction,
mhm,
right? And it's finally sticking. And I'm seeing the real progress that the Father's making in their heart,
mhm.
and how they're changing their ways and everything else. And it's, to be honest, one of the most exciting times of my life thus far.
Yeah.
I haven't lived a very extravagant life. I'm not that old, but thus far, like this is a really good one.
Mm,
It hasn't been quite for 9 years, as yours was, but it's been for a few that I've been
yeah.
praying for him and trying to, however way I can, be a good enough witness to him, and
Mhm,
walking side by side with this person and
mhm.
seeing the changes over time
That's
and
good.
seeing what this person has gone through and everything else. Like, it's,
Mm,
you're right, there's something about the process being drawn out that's really beautiful about it,
mhm.
and that you can just,
It's frustrating, but it is beautiful.
yeah, it can be frustrating for sure.
Mhm,
Because there's so many times where a person could like be on the precipice, and you're like, oh,
mhm.
if they would just get it. But then like maybe they fall short a couple of times.
Yeah.
But then, through the grace of the Most High, at some point it sticks, it lands.
Mm,
And, just being any part of it is a blessing because it has nothing to do with us, right?
Mhm.
I think anybody here would agree. It has nothing to do with anything that we've done.
Mhm.
The blessing is that the Father chose us to be a part of it. He could have been anybody else. He could have used anybody else. He could have not used anybody at all. He could have done
Mhm.
it all by himself, but
100%.
he wanted us
Mhm.
to have the experience with him. Um, and yeah, I'm so blessed and thankful for that
Mhm.
experience. And it's constantly reminded me of that story that
Mhm.
you, from time to time, tell about
Yeah.
that friend you had
Well,
that you prayed for so
and
long.
it is amazing to see his faith now, because we're let's see, we baptized him, um, a little over a year ago now. I think he's pushing, like, 15 months post-baptism now. So, like, actually seeing fruit in his life is insane.
Yeah,
Um, and, uh, it's cool because he grew up in a household of some relatively strong faith. Um, and so, like, he has years of foundation under him, so it's not like scripture's brand new to him. Um, but he was running for so long, and, uh, I know he saw a lot of hypocrisy when he was young, and that did not sit well with him. Um, and I know that he had a really wild soul and just uh, wanted to do things on his own terms. And uh, he's seeing the long term ramifications of that, because it's very interesting um, to talk with him about just past regrets that he has. And he's like, if I'd come to this so much sooner, like all of these things that could have been addressed. And I was just like, well, yeah, they could have been addressed, but um, would you have the wisdom that you have now, um, if you hadn't have made those mistakes and now learn from them, and you know what to do about them now? So I think it's strengthening his testimony more than anything else. Is that, um, yes, there's heartache he has now that he wouldn't have had, if he had uh, been walking with Yah sooner and, actually listened to the wisdom that is available to him. Um, but he's listening now, and uh, the impact that I'm seeing for the kingdom that he's getting to be a part of. Um, he's definitely having a really strong impact now. So, um, he's getting to be part of experiences that he wouldn't have been a part of otherwise. And I think um, the hard learned lessons that he is learning, has learned, and has learned from. It's a very unique experience. So, uh, I find it very fascinating, um, what Yah does on a long term timeline, because if it had been up to me, if I had had my way, it just would have been easy peasy. Um, pray for him for 6 months, and then he comes to faith, and then, everything's hunky dory. Uh, but Yah's got such a grand timeline in mind with the way he does things, and there is so much more order to it, um, on complexities that I just can't even begin to fathom. I can't talk this morning. Uh, so when we say Yah's got this, like, he has got this, in ways that we will never understand. So his timing is much better than ours.
absolutely.
Kolobowski, this proverb has a special study to me. Boss best friend died while I was at ATS last year on the early morning of February 17. This was the first set of scriptures that I read. Wow, that's heavy. Saw a woman share a testimony praying for her brother's salvation for over 50 years. My gosh, that is long suffering right there. He went in and out of jail rehab, but finally accepted Christ late in life, just a year or two before he died. Praise Yah. Never stop praying. Persistence and faith in the Father is so important. The Father doesn't give up on us. We shouldn't give up on our friends and loved ones. Agreed. And like I said earlier, I gave up on praying for my buddy twice. And not just the like, oh, okay, I'll just take a break for a little while. It's a little legit, like, I've been praying for this dude for years and this ain't going nowhere. All right, I get the message, so I'll just move on. And legit, like, there was 6 months to a year that I just stopped praying for him. It was just frustrating. So, God's will is better than ours. And just because you don't see him moving doesn't mean he's not moving.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure he's not us, right?
Oh, yeah, my gosh. You know, I've given up on people. I wouldn't want him to give up on me.
Yeah.
So, Shalom, Bertrand.
Bertrand, what's up, homie?
All right. Moving past verse 2. A refining pot for silver and a furnace for gold. Yahweh tries the hearts. An evildoer gives heed to wicked lips. A liar gives ear to a tongue of desire. He who mocks the poor reproaches his maker. He who rejoices at calamity does not go unpunished. Children's children are the crown of old men, and an adornment of children is their fathers. Excellent speech is not fitting for a fool, much less lying lips for a noble. Yahweh tries the hearts. I'm sure that's playing into the timeline that we were just talking about earlier. That you're really gonna see the condition of somebody's heart over time. That I think this is a microcosm. One of the reasons why some of these long form podcasts like Rogan do so well is because you can see somebody's personality better when you're talking to them over 2 or 3 hours versus when you're getting these 60-second sound bites off of somebody. Because anybody can sound relatively cohesive for a few seconds, but when you're actually having more of a drawn out conversation with somebody, you begin to start seeing who they really are.
Mm-hmm.
And you multiply that out over years of actually shoulder to shoulder with somebody. You really see who they truly are, and the actions they take, the actions they don't take, just who they are character wise. Versus you have one meeting with somebody. You probably just got them at their best, or maybe you got them on a bad day. You don't know who they really are until you've spent time with them. And I think Yah trying hearts. He's got all seeing, all knowing, and an infinite amount of time to heart check somebody. And he already knows. And so I think the heart check is more for us than anything else. But yeah.
Well, there's also that verse that talks about man, how does it put it exactly? It's what comes from the lips comes from the heart, something to that effect, right? Or I
I'm trying
might
to
be
think of a
getting that
specific
wrong.
one for that. There's 8 or 10 that are kind of swimming around in my mind that like kind of dance around that. Several are in Proverbs. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it's essentially yeah, what comes out of your mouth is going to be reflective of where your heart is.
Yeah, that's kind of the point I guess I was trying to make.
So this probably isn't the one you were thinking of. Um, was it
Well,
Mark?
being honest, I don't know which one I was thinking
I don't
of.
know. Um, Mark 7. One fingers work. Mm, do uh, Mark 7. I'm in verse 17. And he went from the crowd into a house, and his taught ones asked him concerning the parable. He said to them, "Are you also without understanding? Do you not perceive that whatever enters a man from outside is unable to defile him, because it does not enter his heart, but his stomach, and is eliminated, thus purging all the foods?" And he said, "What comes out of a man that or it is what comes out of a man that defiles a man. For from within out the heart, for from within out of the heart of men proceeds evil reasonings, adulteries, whorings, and murder, theft, greedy desires, wickedness, deceit, indecency, and an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these wicked matters come from within and defile a man. And rising up from there, he went out. Okay, so essentially, it's what comes out of a man is what defiles him, and not what he puts in his body. And the Mark 7:19 is a hotly debated verse that people use for justifying eating foods that are unclean. And if you actually read the context of where he's going on, um, nobody in there is debating food. Everybody in there is talking about. Um, I believe if you go up a little bit, um, the context is eating food with unwashed hands, if I remember right. Um, uh,
Well, and then they're saying it's reiterated in Luke,
yeah,
obviously. For
verse
out of the
5.
abundance of the heart, his mouth
Mhm,
speaks.
exactly.
Luke 6.
Yeah, verse 5, the Pharisees and the scribes asked him, why do your taught ones not walk in according to the traditions of the elders, not the law, the traditions of the elders. There's a big difference there. But eat bread with unwashed hands. And there's a whole interjection on that.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And that's aside from the point that we were getting at, but everybody likes to, not everybody, there's a lot of people who like to use verse 19. It's like, oh, I can eat what I want. It's like, okay, cool. Um, Context of their debate is about washing your hands. And that's a ritualistic washing, not even like a washing your hands with soap and water. It's like um, it's effectively a blessing that their elders brought in over time. Um, that they thought would ward away anything that potentially may have come into contact with their food, um, that might have ritualistically defiled it. And they're like, oh, hey, maybe a mouse walked across this grain somewhere, and oh no, like it's like, bro, that's not how that works, but okay. But anyway, Yeshua focusing on something much more important. He's like, hey, what comes out of a man's heart is what defiles him. From within the heart of men proceeds evil reasonings, adulterous warrings, murders, theft, greedy desires, wickedness, deceit, indecency, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, and foolishness. Like, don't you think those things are going to defile somebody? Like, I would say that that's a pretty decent list of some things that make someone pretty messed up.
Yeah.
So. And it's only going to be context and dwell time with somebody that you're going to see the words that come out of their mouth are eventually going to line up with what their actions are. And you're going to see what the condition of their heart is. So. Chicken Farmer Plus, Shalom. Good to see you here.
Oh, the good old Chicken Farmer. Shalom, brother. Oh, man.
I'm just catching up. Yeah, I would agree, Matt Bear. You just peruse the Talmud and you'll see that those traditions get really weird really fast. Dana, I bet in my mind I'm thinking through what I grew up being told was in the Bible that is actually not in there. Hey, yeah. A lot of us are finding that out pretty quick. Chicken Farmers Plus, a man is only as good as the words that align within the fruits of his work. I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
You will know them by their fruits, not their words, says Dana. I would agree. The actions of somebody are going to long term going to show you more about that person than anything that they have to say. That said, if you are a man of your word, a woman of your word, your words and your actions are going to align. And on a long enough timeline, they do anyway. But what was it? Your thoughts become your words become your actions become your character, something to that effect. That's why we're supposed to take every thought captive, because we let our thoughts dwell for too long, and eventually we hold on to them, and then we begin speaking those things, and when we begin speaking those things, eventually we tolerate them enough to do them. And when we partake in something long enough, then eventually that becomes our character over a timeline. Because you're not defined by one mistake, but you keep making that mistake even after being reproved on it many, many times. And a dog returns to its vomit. So you keep coming back to it on a long enough timeline. It's like, it's pretty well becoming your character. See, where are we? I think this is an interesting commentary. A bribe is a stone of favor in the eyes of its owner. Wherever he turns, he prospers. He who covers transgression seeks love, but he who or he who repeats a matter separates intimate friends. Um, I can see that going a couple of different ways. So, um, you bribe somebody, or somebody is bribed, and they're always going to look at something that falls in line with that bribe in favorable light, regardless of what it actually is. Um, and my brain goes to covering a transgression. Well, what if the bribe is related to covering the transgression? Is he covering that transgression in quote unquote love because of the bribe? Um, which I don't know. I don't know that was the intent of what was written there. But them being so close to each other, I can't help but think that those are connected in some way. Because I think in the altruistic sense, covering a transgression in love, I think is very noble, very good. And it's like, hey, I love you, I forgive you, move on. Um, but in the context of the bribe, um, causing the person to look the other way. Um, are they looking the other way because of the love of money that's there? Are they looking the other way um, because they're trying to um, not stir anything up? Uh, like I can think of a lot of situations where people have intentionally looked the other way at sin that they're tolerating in their environment. And it's like, well, I want to do the loving thing. I don't want to, I don't want to call them out. I don't want to be mean about it. And it's like, well, calling out sin, I think, is more loving than allowing that person to continue in that sin. And I'm not saying bash them over the head. I'm not saying, you know, be a horrifically awful person of like, you're going to hell. And it's like, okay, well, hey man, if you keep going in that self-destructive behavior that's going on, this does not end well. And I love you too much to let you, wallow in that. Uh, I think that's more loving. Uh, and when they actually repent of that, to leave it alone and not draw it back up again. Um, I think that's the more covering a transgression in love. Um, but if you are accepting a bribe to look the other way, um, yeah, I don't know the logistics of how that pans out. And like I said, I can't definitively tell you uh, that verse 9 is directly connected with verse 8, in that the bribe and the covering of the transgression in love um, are 100% simpatico with what Solomon was writing there. But them being side by side, just that's the connection my brain makes.
Well, so Chicken Farmer's making the point that consider it as a transgression, not sin.
Mm.
So it could just simply also be somebody doing something against you that isn't per se sin. Like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something in my mind. Like,
Well, a lot of times Scripture will talk about like sinning against Yah versus sinning against your brother, um, and it's it, sinning against your brother is can go a couple of different ways. Because there's the legit, like, you're doing something that is wrong, versus you're doing something that just like causes strife between you. Um, like, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you. It's like that's not necessarily wrong, but that doesn't bode well over a long enough timeline.
right, well, like for instance, somebody I really love,
Mm.
they don't really reach out to me anymore as much as they used to, and it's probably based on something you just touched on earlier. I came to them in love.
Mm.
It was not probably how they perceived it, but I love them enough to tell them the truth. And
Yeah.
anyways, because they don't reach out anymore, because they don't like put an effort into the relationship, I can look at that as a transgression towards me, right? It can be, like you said, causing strife, but that isn't necessarily a sin. Like, he's not sinning against me. He's not required to talk to me.
No.
He doesn't choose to. So I think maybe that's the point that Chicken Farmer's making, is it's not necessarily just talking about sin here. It'd just be the fact that, whenever your brother's doing something that you particularly don't like, treat the situation with love and try to correct it. At least the way I'm taking it. I'm not. Sins were punishable regardless, based on the law. Yeah.
Yeah. That going off that though, I would focus on that they were punishable, because you get into like Ezekiel 18, and Yahweh is much more forgiving than we focus on a lot of times. And there's a whole world of transgressions that we have every right to be punished for, that He has forgiven, and so it's one of those that I'm so grateful that He is so long suffering, because if I had had the same measure of impatience applied to me, that I hold a lot of people to, that I'm just horrifically impatient with. If Yah was that impatient with me, then He would have left me a long time ago, would have given up on me a long time ago. So I'm grateful that He is much more long suffering than I can even imagine. Because, like, even trying to think about the stuff that I didn't even realize I was doing that was wrong. It's like, man, this kid just can't figure it out. So I'm so glad he doesn't have that attitude. People run from truth if it hurts their feelings. It's so sad. We're not programmed to intake tough love as humans. I don't know. We just don't like pain, so I think we run from it. And I agree. It is sad. Um, a bride submitting to her husband does his desire, and if he is wrong, she is still supporting him, and it is his sin. She is being obedient and faithful as a bride. Yeah, I'd say so. Um, yeah, we already hit. We already hit choosing the bear instead of the man, in verse 12, which it just makes me chuckle. Whoever rewards evil for good, evil does not leave his house. The beginning of strife is like the releasing of water. Therefore, stop fighting before it breaks out. He who declares the wrong right, and he who condemns the righteous, both of them are an abomination to Yahweh. And those of you know, I'm still in the middle of my abomination study. That one is Strong's 8441 again, which is the most common use for abomination that we see in Scripture. Whole lot of context in that one, but people who are calling wrong right, people who are condemning the righteous, are an abomination to Yahweh. That one's heavy. Why is this price in the hand of a fool to buy wisdom when there is no heart? Price in the hand of a fool to buy wisdom. I don't have any insight on that one. What do you think?
The price in the hand of a fool to buy wisdom. Doesn't mean I'm correct, but what
You're good.
my mind goes to, just kind of reading it, is what's the point of a fool trying to buy wisdom if his heart's not in it? If he's not
it's not
going
going
to
to do him any
receive
good.
it. Yeah. Or like maybe on the other side of that, like what's the point of trying to sell wisdom to somebody?
Oh, yeah.
If
That's a good word.
they're not going to, because they might buy it, they might listen to it, but the heart's not ready to receive it.
Well, how often do we buy something and it goes up on the shelf and we never use it?
Yeah.
So, like, if you're just collecting things,
Or chicken farmer, you can't buy wisdom. It is given freely by listening to the wise and asking the Father for it. So, like, also, why would you be trying to sell it? That's another very good point.
Yeah.
Don't sell the word of Yah. It's not a good idea.
Yeah. Agreed. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. It's a good one. Man lacking heart shakes hands in a pledge. He becomes a guarantor for his friend. He who loves transgressions loves strife. He who exalts his door seeks destruction. There's a crooked heart finds no good. Crooked heart finds no good. I wonder, more of, you have someone who, has that quote unquote crooked heart, always seeing, the bad in it, or always reading something bad into the situation, whether it's actually there or not. What I think of is, you ever seen someone who just like can't accept help? And I've been that way myself. But like, they can't fathom someone just being genuinely nice to them. That, like, they always think there's an angle on it. They always think that uh, the world's out to get them. They always think that oh, they're just being nice because they're profiting from it or whatever. Not seeing the good in any of that, and just always reading the worst possible thing into the situation. I even think of, like, someone being overtly pessimistic. The quote unquote Eeyore in that situation, like, nice day, probably gonna rain later. It's like, dude, you can't even enjoy the sunshine that's there for what it is. Like, just instantly throwing that, this is just going to get worse into the whole scheme of things. So, skipping a couple of verses. A rejoicing heart causes good healing, but a stricken spirit dries the bones. One who is wrong accepts a bribe behind the back to pervert the paths of the right ruling. Wisdom is before the face of the understanding one, but the eyes of a fool are on the end of the earth. The eyes of a fool are on the end of the earth, or on the ends of the earth. Insert flat earth comment there.
Is that my cue?
What's up?
Is that my cue? I don't
No,
know.
I don't care.
Uh,
I was I was talking with a brother, about the shape of the Earth, not that long ago, and I was like, "Dude, I really don't care." I was like, "I really don't care." Like, I have a thought of what it probably is, but, like, it changes nothing for me, and they're like, "No, no, it does. Like, like, if you have it this way, then like this, and if you have it this way, then it's like this." Is like, "No." Like, people can have inconsistent conclusions. It happens all the time. It's like, it doesn't put food on my table. Like, I don't care. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are trying to make a lot of hay about, a deep dish pizza shaped Earth or whatever.
the Hebrew word for circle and spear are the same word. Interesting. Um, Perspective breeds heart condition, and humility understands that blessings come from the Father in every fashion from anyone he chooses to move to you.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he can use whoever he wants.
Hmm. Well, the other thing is the people that are in your life are not. They're not in your life by happenstance. They are in your life for a reason, and you are uniquely qualified with experiences and wisdom that the Father has given you to impact their life. And that doesn't mean that all of these people are going to come to Him. I hope they do. I sincerely hope they do. But He's put that person in your life for a reason. And, I keep defaulting to this just about every other week, seems like. But when Mordecai's talking to Esther, it's like, if you don't, God's going to raise up someone else who will, and you will have no blessing in this. So you best get after it.
Brian Barn with the jokes.
I'm going to leave that one alone.
So when that blessing comes to you, if you refuse the help or the gift, you are refusing a blessing from the Father. Oof. Don't let go your or don't let your ego and pride cause you to refuse a blessing.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Thank you for that good word, brother. That's
100%.
that's a good one.
Hmm. Let's see. What verse are we in? Uh, a
Somewhere around
foolish son is
25.
the grief of his father and bitterness to her who bore him. It is also not good to punish the righteous one, to strike a noble one for straightness. He who has knowledge spares his words. A man of understanding is cool of spirit. Even a fool keeping silence is regarded as wise, as understanding when he closes his lips. Too many people let their ego get in the way. Chicken Farmer Plus said facts. I would agree, Dana.
Oh.
Well, it is getting to be about that time. Uh, I have got some protein pancake batter that
Ooh,
I'm
that
going to go
sounds
make
good.
with my kids.
Nice.
Yeah, that's the plan. I already pre-cooked the turkey bacon, and I chopped up some steak last night and cooked that on the griddle too. So That'd be good.
I now want pancakes, so
Yeah,
thank you for that.
dude, protein pancakes have become a day of prep tradition in my household. So we used to do pancakes on Shabbat, and then I just kind of got convicted about like, hey, this is taking a long time. So how about we shift this up a day in advance and make a double batch? Um, and plus, I'm home on Friday mornings, and so my kids get that interaction with me. We get to make pancakes together, and then it being the double batch, it goes for days, to the point where it buys my wife a little bit of time in the mornings on when I'm at work at night and then come home and need to go straight to bed. She's like, "Oh, breakfast already made. Here you go, kiddos." Uh,
Oh, this is good. Sorry. As men, we are usually the most guilty of refusing help or refusing to ask for it, and that
100%.
keeps the person that would help you from giving you the blessing the Father has for you as well. Yeah, we're really, really bad at that.
100% chicken farmer
Uh,
plus.
yeah, I've been trying to be
Mhm.
much better about that because yeah, man, growing up, you just you have this false sense of what that really means.
Mm,
I had the wrong idea of what I understood like a man to be,
mm,
and yeah, that was definitely part of it.
mm.
Agreed,
Yeah,
chicken farmer.
I would say for sure the refusing of help. Um, for me, it goes a couple of different ways. Um, the I can do it myself mentality.
Yeah.
Um, the if I don't do this myself, what does that say about me? Um, and then there's the I can't articulate what I need, and because I can't articulate what I need, uh, it's just easier for me to do this on my own than try and struggle to figure out how to tell you what I need.
Hmm.
Um, those are the couple of different ways that it goes for me in the not asking for help. Um, because the I can do it myself mentality is the uh, usually pride more often than not. In the sense of look at everything that I've done. The If I can't do this, what does that say about me? Is the other side of it. It's still pride, but it's the questioning your manhood at that point. Um, and that's offensive to a lot of guys is having your manhood questioned, or your capability even questioned. Um, and so yeah, I think that causes a lot of us to refuse help. Uh, and then the third one for me has been where most of it has been, definitely more in recent years, is that I can't articulate what I need. And so it is easier for me to do it on my own. Um, and that's something that my wife and we've been working on together, is trying to get better at articulating to each other what our needs are. Um, it's like, hey, this is a priority to me. How do we structure this so that way I'm able to do X, Y, and Z, and you do A, B, and C, and they come together, and it, rainbows and sunshine and unicorns and all that good stuff. Uh, and I think the secret sauce to that, has been saying things whether we think the other person knows it or not. Um, it's like, hey, I'm sure you're already aware, but this. It's like, oh, okay, I didn't know that, or yeah, tracking like a tank, 100%. Um, Saying things whether you think the other person needs to hear it or not, even if it may be useless information, it's still information. And in that, we have found that we're communicating things to each other that the other person didn't know that we thought the other person did know. And so I'm seeing a lot of fruit in that. Brian Barnes, not articulating the need or thinking that we need to do it ourselves is spot on. I need a fact emoji. 100%. Yeah. To all of your pancake questions earlier, if you are on carnivore, you can separate egg yolks from egg whites, and then you fluffify both of those separately, and then you fluffify them together, and you have a carb-free protein pancake. It's very fluffy, um, and the way my family makes protein pancakes, we uh, very high protein density Greek yogurt, milk and eggs come together, and then um, I use a very little bit of honey instead of sugar, and then baking powder and salt. And then I do a little bit of some very high quality flour that is, got a good wheat content to it. None of the additives that they have in there, and there's a mild amount of protein in wheat, but it's mostly bugs and stuff. And then I do a metric ton of Jocko vanilla protein powder in there, and I was doing some back of the napkin math. The whole mixture is like 200 grams of protein, and that it makes quite a few pancakes. But like each pancake is going to be like 6 or 7 grams of protein. Uh, so it's there's carbs in there because of the flour, uh, but it's a lot better than the old pancakes we used to make years ago that were basically sugar. So uh, answering your question on that one, JS Genesis, natural maple syrup I don't believe is okay on carnivore, but I'm not on carnivore, so I can't 100% speak to that. On your true pure carnivore, it is only animal-based products and salt, I think, are the.
Oh, dude, waffles.
Yeah, waffles is solid.
I love how waffles captured the syrup. Okay, that's it for me. Done deal.
I don't know if the recipe that I'm using for pancakes just doesn't work on my waffle iron anymore, or if I'm just that out of practice at making waffles. But the last 4 times I've tried to make waffles, it has gone horrifically bad. Uh, and it's either me or the waffle iron or both. So
I think we all need to get off here and make breakfast. We're all
yeah,
hungry
that's the
now.
plan. I'm gonna go spend some time with my kiddos. Gonna make some really good breakfast. Hope you guys have a really good day of prep.
Mm-hmm.
I do know it takes you out of ketosis, but I did it strict for a year. Unleavened bread ruined it. Oh, well, I don't know that unleavened bread ruined it, but all right, you guys take your Bible with you, pray with somebody, go do hard things. Shalom.
Shalom, y'all.